Hi, second graders. Welcome to Read Aloud Time. We are reading Gooney the Fabulous. So far, we've read the first two chapters. In chapter 1, we met a lot of characters. I took notes to keep track. We met Kiko, who was really sad. We met Malcolm, we learned, likes to say things 3 times. We met Tyrone and Mrs. Pigeon. And then when we read chapter 2, we met even more characters, which makes sense because this is a second grade classroom. So there's a bunch of kids in the classroom. And we saw that the setting of the story moved to the cafeteria. So in the first chapter, they were in the classroom and they were talking about fables. And then in the second chapter, they were in the cafeteria, but they kind of did a flashback and they remembered what happened in the classroom. And what we learned is that Gooney Green had this fabulous idea that everyone should write their own fable with a moral. Now remember, a fable is a story about an animal as the main character, and the story has a moral or teaches a lesson. Now in this second chapter, what we learned was that we met Nicholas. And Nicholas in this chapter was feeling really sad. But we're not exactly sure why he had his head down on the table or why he was feeling sad. The friends were asking him what was wrong, but he just didn't answer. So here's chapter 3, and here is the chapter Picture, Not Heading. Chapter 3 starts. Gooney, suggested Mrs. Pigeon, I'm going to put you in charge of this project since it was your wonderful idea. Most of the children are ready, so would you come here to the front of the class and call on them? A whole week had gone by, and now with just 1 week left until vacation, the second graders had been working with excitement on their projects. Many of the students had thought of their idea, brought in their costume parts, and were eager to display them and tell their fables. Gooney, who always looked as if she was wearing a costume even when she wasn't, came to the front of the classroom. Today, try and picture this, friends, she was wearing hiking boots, 2 different colored knee socks. One was blue, one was yellow. And you could see them just at the top of the boots. Even though there was snow on the ground, Gooney was wearing red plaid shorts. She also wore a short-sleeved t-shirt with army camouflage colors, and dangling around her neck was a sparkly rhinestone necklace. Now that is an interesting outfit, second graders. Mrs. Pigeon went to sit in her desk chair, and then she said, Actually, Gooney, why don't you go first, since it was your idea? Gooney thought for a moment and said, No, I want to go last. All right, then, you may go last. Time to choose who goes first. Volunteers? Gooney asked, looking around the classroom. Hands? Many hands shot up in the air. Barry Tuckerman, as always, was half standing at his desk, waving his arm wildly. Felicia Ann, as always, was looking at the floor, but her hand was raised in a timid sort of way. Gooney looked at Nicholas. Nicholas, she said, why don't you go first, even though you didn't raise your hand? Nicholas had been looking gloomy all week, and he shook his head no. Is there anything we can do to make you feel more cheerful? Gooney asked in a kindly voice. No, Nicholas muttered. Well then, Gooney looked around the room at all the waving hands. Finally, she looked at the teacher's desk. Mrs. Pigeon, is your fable ready? Yes, said Mrs. Pigeon. I have it right here. And your costume? Said Gooney Mrs. Pigeon nodded. Well, then I'd like you to go first. You're a member of this class, after all. Mrs. Pigeon smiled. All right, she said, and she stood up. She was wearing black slacks and a black turtleneck shirt. She reached into the bag that she had stored under her desk, and she brought out a white vest to put on. How shall we do this, Gooney she asked. Would it be fun to have the class guess what animal each of us picked? No, Nicholas said loudly. It was very startling. Nicholas ordinarily was really cheerful. but all week he had been acting so strangely. Gooney decided just to ignore him. Yes, Mrs. Pigeon, that sounds like a great idea. Let's guess. Class, take a look at Mrs. Pigeon and guess what animal she is. Remember, your animal has to start with the first letter of your name. So Mrs. Pigeon's must start with a P. Yeah, but P's her last name, said Tricia. Mrs. Pigeon laughed. That's true, she said, but my first name also starts with a P. It's Patsy. I'm a 2P person. Now, see if you can guess my animal. The class all looked carefully. Mrs. Pigeon was wearing entirely black, except for her white middle. I'm going to stop there, second graders. I'm going to show you the picture, and I want you to guess what animal she is. And when I come back on Friday, when we come back tomorrow and Thursday, then we'll read the rest of the chapter and find out about Mrs. Pigeon. Here she is. What animal? Oh, and there's Gooney's crazy outfit. What animal do you think she might be that starts with a P? Can't wait to find out tomorrow.